After I refused to lend my brother money, he joked by pouring wine on my $5,000 suit. Mom told me to forget it. I said nothing. The next morning, his job offer disappeared, and he finally understood. The wine splashed against my chest like a slow-motion car crash, or maybe that's just how my brain replays it now. Deep red Merlot blooming across 5 grand's worth of charcoal gray Tom Ford wool, soaking straight through to the crisp white shirt underneath, destroying both in an instant. My brother, Caleb, stood there holding an empty glass, his mouth twitching with that half-smirk I'd seen my entire life. The one that said he knew exactly what he'd done and that he'd get away with it again. "Oh shit," he muttered, trying not to laugh. "Dude, I'm so sorry. Total accident." My mom's voice sliced through the silence before I could even respond. "Let it go, Ethan. Just let it go. Don't make a scene." So I didn't. I smiled, said it was fine, and left with my girlfriend, Claire. What I didn't mention was that the part of my brain built for restraint and long-term strategy was already spinning gears. None of them realized it yet, but fate was about to hand me something much sweeter than revenge. The rare chance to watch karma finally corner the one person who'd always slipped away from it. Caleb's 28, 3 years younger, and the type of guy people describe as a natural. The charm came effortlessly. Varsity basketball, dated the homecoming queen, got extensions from teachers just by flashing that perfect grin. I was the quiet one, the kid eating lunch in the library, signing up for academic tournaments my parents never came to because, well, Caleb needed their attention for his sensitive temperament. I went to Northwestern on a partial scholarship, worked 2 jobs, earned my degree in economics, and clawed my way through Chicago consulting firms until I made partner at 31, clearing just under $400,000 a year in corporate restructuring. Caleb went to a state school paid for entirely by my parents, changed majors 3 times, graduated after 5 years with a 2.7 GPA in communications. Since then, he's bounced between 6-month marketing gigs, a failed influencer stint, and a short-lived career in insurance sales. Every collapse was cushioned with the same excuse. He's still figuring things out. Not everyone's path is straight. The money flowed from them to him constantly, just a little help here and there, adding up to around $100,000 over 5 years, money everyone silently knew was gone forever. Meanwhile, when I asked for $3,000 in grad school to cover a medical bill, my dad said, "You're old enough to handle your own problems, Ethan. Build your credit." So I did. Took out a personal loan at 11% interest, paid it off in 18 months while working full-time and finishing my MBA at night. 3 months ago, I met Claire. She's a corporate attorney, sharp as hell, born into old Boston money, but as genuine as they come. We met at a networking event, and within weeks I knew she was different. She saw me, really saw me, and valued the qualities my family had always treated like defects. "I love how you think things through," she'd tell me. "You make me feel safe." Her dad, Richard Monroe, ran Monroe Systems, a mid-sized tech firm out of Boston with about 300 employees. We met over Thanksgiving and hit it off immediately. Same logical mindset, same belief that success should be earned, not inherited. "You remind me of myself at your age," Richard said over a glass of scotch. "Built everything from scratch. No shortcuts." 2 weeks later, he called and offered me a job, vice president of corporate development, for $150,000 base plus equity and relocation. It wasn't just a promotion, it was validation. I hadn't told my family yet. Wanted it to be official first. I did tell Claire I should visit them soon, maybe bring her along. That was my first mistake. Dinner was supposed to be simple, suburban Detroit, pot roast, cheap wine from Costco. I told my parents I was bringing someone special. Caleb showed up 20 minutes late with his girlfriend, Brooke, clutching a bottle of discount red and vibrating with that nervous energy that always meant he wanted something. Claire won my parents over instantly. Asked about my mom's garden, complimented my dad's wine choice, listened like she cared. For the first hour, it was perfect. Then Caleb pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Hey, man, I gotta ask you something. Got this opportunity. Just hear me out, okay? There's this startup in Austin, looking for a marketing director. Killer pay, stock options, the whole thing. But I need help covering first and last month's rent, moving costs. How much?" I asked. $15,000. I laughed. 15 grand. I know it sounds like a lot, but this one's different, Ethan. The CEO's a friend of a friend. He's been following my Instagram. Thinks I'd be perfect for building their brand. This could be my real break. I'd heard it all before, the same speech with new details. The CEO was always someone's friend. The opportunity was always different. I can't do it, Caleb. His grin faltered. Can't or won't? Both. Come on. Man, you've made it, right? Big consultant, fancy suits, big money. What's 15K to you? I'm your brother, asking for help. You're asking for money you'll never pay back. That's not the same thing. Wow. Okay, so that's how it is. Claire walked in, instantly sensing the tension. Everything okay? Perfect, Caleb said, grin snapping back. Just catching up with my successful big brother. We went back to the table. Dinner kept going, but the mood had shifted. Caleb poured more wine, laughed too loud, and slipped in little jabs only I caught. Must be nice having life all figured out, he said over dessert. Some of us are still trying to find our way, but hey, not everyone can be Ethan. He raised his glass. To Ethan, may the rest of us someday reach your level of perfection. Ryan. Mom still called him that when she got frustrated. Don't start. What? I'm just being nice. Come on, Ethan, don't be so sensitive. That word again. The same one they'd always used to protect him, now used to sting me. It's fine, I said evenly. He's had a long day. The night wound down. Claire and I stood in the foyer, getting ready to leave. The Tom Ford suit I had on that night, charcoal gray, cut to perfection, probably cost more than Caleb earned in 2 months, but it wasn't about showing off. It was about finally being able to buy something that made me feel like I'd earned my place in the world. Caleb sauntered out of the kitchen with a wine glass in hand, his movements loose and swaggering. Leaving already? Come on, one last toast. To my brother and his beautiful lady. I should have seen it coming, but decades of keeping family peace had trained me to freeze instead of move. To Ethan, he said, grinning. The guy who remembers his roots even when he's too good to help his family. Then his hand jerked forward. Red wine exploded across my chest, soaking into the wool and spreading in a dark, permanent stain. The room went silent. Claire gasped. My mom's hand flew to her mouth. My dad just stared. Oh shit, Caleb stammered, though the laughter in his throat wasn't far behind. Dude, I'm so sorry. Total accident. You know I get clumsy after a few drinks. I looked down at my ruined suit, $5,000 gone in a heartbeat, wine seeping through to the shirt beneath. Ethan, my mom said quickly, voice trembling. It's okay, honey. These things happen. Caleb didn't mean it. I looked at her, then at my father staring at the floor, and finally at Caleb, who was barely holding back a smirk. Forget it, my mom said again, that same tone she'd used 1,000 times when he'd destroyed my stuff growing up. Just forget it, Ethan. Don't make a scene. Claire stiffened beside me, anger rising, but I touched her arm gently. It's fine, I said quietly. Just an accident. Caleb's grin widened like he'd won something. I studied him for a long moment. The designer sneakers he couldn't afford, the watch my parents had given him, that smug face of a man who'd never dealt with a real consequence in his life. We should go, I said to Claire. Early meeting tomorrow. In the car, silence stretched until she finally spoke. Ethan, that wasn't an accident. I know. Your parents, I know. Are you okay? My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. You remember what you told me about your dad? How he built his company and never forgot who crossed him. But he didn't shout about it. She nodded slowly. Yeah. That, I said. Exactly that. She watched me for a long time. What are you thinking? That some debts take time to collect. And patience is a skill I've mastered. What I didn't know then was that Caleb's dream job was at a firm recently bought out by a venture capital group. I didn't know they were restructuring or that Richard Monroe, Claire's father, sat on that group's advisory board. Not yet, anyway, but I was about to learn. The next morning, the dry cleaner examined my suit and sighed. Red wine on wool is fine. Even if I pull the stain, the fibers are shot. You'll never get it back to form. $5,000 gone because my brother was careless and my parents would rather let him trample me than hold him accountable. My phone buzzed. Claire, how are you holding up after last night? I've had better dinners. Your brother's unbelievable. And your parents? Yeah, I said. 31 years of practice. We talked a bit more before I headed to work. Around 2 in the afternoon, my phone started lighting up with messages from my mother. Ethan, something's wrong with Caleb's job. He's very upset. Please call him. Ethan, call your brother. I called her. Ethan, thank God, she said breathlessly. Caleb got a call this morning. The Austin company rescinded his offer. No explanation, just restructuring. He's devastated. Then came the inevitable pause. Maybe you could help him. The $15,000 would really, Mom, no. But he destroyed a $5,000 suit last night, and you told me to let it go. Silence. That was an accident, Ethan. You're not really going to hold that against him while he's struggling, are you? I'm not holding a grudge, I said evenly. But I'm not handing him 15 grand, either. That's called boundaries. You've changed, she said sharply. You sound cold. No, Mom. I just grew up. There's a difference. She hung up. An hour later, Caleb called. Mom told you. His tone was flat. Yeah, sorry about the job. Are you? I didn't answer. Look, I know I screwed up with the wine, he said after a moment. I was drunk and pissed off. I'm sorry, but I'm also kind of screwed right now. I gave notice at my old job. I was counting on Austin. I need that money, Ethan. There was real panic in his voice this time, not his usual act. What happened? I asked. Recruiter called this morning. Said there were unexpected changes, new leadership, going in another direction. Didn't say much else. That's odd timing, I said. Why? You had a signed offer, right? Usually those don't just vanish unless something big changes. Yeah, signed 2 weeks ago. Why does that matter? When did you say you signed? 2 weeks ago. And the company? Zenith Marketing Solutions. Why? My pulse quickened. And they were recently acquired? Yeah, like a month ago. Some VC firm. The CEO said it was great news, more funding, more resources. That's why I was pumped. I opened my laptop. Zenith Marketing Solutions, acquired by Pinnacle Ventures Group. Advisory Board, Richard Monroe. My chest tightened. Caleb, I need to go. I'll call you later. Wait, what about the money? I hung up and immediately called Richard. Ethan, he said warmly. How are you? Claire mentioned dinner got interesting. Richard, can I ask you something? Are you on the advisory board for Pinnacle Ventures? There was a pause. I am. Why? Did they acquire a company called Zenith Marketing Solutions? They did, he said slowly. What's this about? My brother, I said. Caleb Thornton. He had a marketing director offer there. It was pulled this morning. Silence. Richard, he exhaled. Let me ask you something first. Your brother, his name's Caleb Thornton? My stomach dropped. Yes. Jesus, he muttered. Ethan, Pinnacle called me yesterday for my input on the Zenith restructuring. They sent a list of recent hires for review, and your brother's name was on it. I didn't make the connection at first. Thornton's a common name. When I saw the name Caleb Thornton, marketing director, pinning on that list, something clicked. I opened his file, noticed he was from Detroit and about your age, and my gut told me to dig deeper. I even called Claire to make sure it was the same person. What did you tell them? I asked. The truth, Richard said. That from what I'd heard, he didn't have a record of follow-through or accountability. That if they were building a legitimate leadership team, he wasn't the right fit. You killed his offer, I said quietly. I gave them facts they would have uncovered anyway during vetting, he replied. His resume was a mess. Jobs he said he'd held for years barely lasted months. References were vague. No solid track record anywhere. The man simply doesn't have professional credibility. But you did it because of dinner, I pressed. His tone sharpened. I did it because Claire came home upset. And when I looked into him, I found exactly what I expected, someone skating by on charm instead of substance. Would I have investigated otherwise? Probably not. Did realizing he was your brother make me look harder? Definitely. He's desperate, Richard. He quit his old job, I said. Then maybe he'll finally learn something, he replied. I'm not sorry I did it, Ethan. I'm only sorry you're the one caught between it. We hung up, and I just sat there in my office, trying to wrap my head around what had happened. I hadn't asked Richard to do anything. Hadn't even known he could. But he had. And now Caleb's sure thing was gone. My phone buzzed, a text from Mom. Asterisk Ethan, your brother says there's something strange about how the job fell through. Did you have anything to do with this? Asterisk I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Asterisk no, I didn't. Asterisk technically true. I hadn't lifted a finger. But I also wasn't going to fix it. Over the next 3 days, the calls started. Mom, Dad, even Aunt Linda, who hadn't spoken to me in years. Every one of them carried some version of the same plea. Caleb was struggling. Caleb needed help. Couldn't I just step in this one time? That phrase. Asterisk, just this once asterisk, had been their chorus for over a decade. I could count at least a dozen previous one times, each ending the same way. Caleb taking the money, learning nothing, and everyone pretending it wasn't predictable. My responses were calm, consistent. I'm sorry he's having a hard time, but I can't help financially right now. Technically true again. I couldn't afford to enable him anymore. Caleb called twice. The first time, he actually sounded contrite, something I wasn't used to. Look, I know I screwed up with the wine thing. I've screwed up a lot, man. But I'm trying to change. This Austin job was supposed to be my fresh start, a chance to prove I could follow through for once. There was something raw in his voice, almost enough to make me waver. Almost. But then I pictured that smirk, the wine dripping down my suit, Mom telling me to forget it, like my feelings were an inconvenience. I hope you figure it out, Caleb, I said evenly. I really do. But I can't be the one to bail you out this time. The second call came 2 days later, and this time he sounded different. Edgy, paranoid. I've been thinking about the timing, he started, no greeting. That job disappeared the day after dinner. The day after I asked you for money, and you said no. That's one hell of a coincidence, isn't it? What are you implying? I asked. I don't know. Maybe nothing. But you're connected now, right? Dating some fancy lawyer from a rich family in Boston. Her dad runs some big tech company. Doesn't take a genius to see the pattern. My stomach tightened. Caleb, I had nothing to do with your job falling through. But you could have, couldn't you? If you wanted to. You've got connections now. You've moved up, left us all behind. That's not fair, I said. Isn't it? You've always been the smart one, the successful one. Now you're dating into serious money, while I'm still hustling, trying to land something decent. And right when I finally do, it falls apart right after I see you. You really expect me to believe that's just bad luck? Why would I sabotage you? What would I get out of that? I don't know, revenge? Because I ruined your precious $5,000 suit? Because I embarrassed you in front of your girlfriend and her rich family? Because deep down, you've always hated that Mom and Dad favored me, even if you'll never admit it. His words hung between us like smoke. Part of me wanted to shut it down completely, to tell him he was being paranoid. But another part, the one I usually kept buried, couldn't quite deny the sting of truth. You're right about one thing, I said slowly. I do resent you, but not because you were their favorite. I resent you because you've never once faced the fallout of your own choices. Because you take from everyone around you and never give back. Because you treat people like ATMs and then play victim when they say no. So no, Caleb, I'm not giving you 15 grand to fix another mess of your own making. Silence. Then, coldly, you've changed, Ethan. You used to care about family. No, I said. I used to be convenient. There's a difference. I was nice when you needed something and invisible when you didn't. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time you called just to check in? Not to ask for help, just to talk? He said nothing, and that said everything. I grew up, Caleb, I finished quietly. Maybe it's time you did too. He hung up without a word. That evening, Claire came by. She'd been giving me space all week, but I could tell she wanted to talk. We sat on the couch with Chinese takeout that had gone cold, cartons unopened between us. My dad told me what happened, she said softly. About the job, yeah? About what he told that VC group. I figured word would get around eventually. Are you okay with it? Claire asked gently, with how it all played out. I set my chopsticks down and stared at the wall for a long moment, trying to line up the thoughts spinning in my head. Honestly, I don't know. Part of me feels guilty, like I should have stepped in, warned Caleb somehow, told Richard to keep quiet. But another part feels like justice was finally served, she said, finishing for me. I sighed. Does that make me a bad person? For not wanting to fix it for him? Claire took her time before answering, the way she always did when it mattered. No, Ethan. You didn't cause any of this. You didn't even know it was happening. Your brother's facing the fallout of his own exaggerations and lack of follow-through. The only difference this time is that someone actually checked instead of waving him through. But Richard only checked because of me, I said. Because he met Caleb that night and saw how he treated me. If that dinner hadn't happened, Caleb would probably be packing for Austin right now. Maybe, she said. Or maybe Pinnacle's team would have caught the same red flags eventually. They're a serious firm. They don't skip due diligence. Either way, what Richard said about your brother was true, wasn't it? I thought about Caleb's inflated resume. The jobs he'd stretched into multi-year roles that barely lasted a season. The vague references he probably listed without permission. The employment gaps he covered with half-truths. Yeah, I admitted. It was all true. Then what's the real problem here? She asked softly. That he got caught? Or that someone finally made him accountable? I didn't have a clean answer for that. Claire went on. My dad's not vindictive. He's methodical. When he evaluates someone, he looks for patterns, reliability, honesty, follow-through. Your brother failed on all counts. The wine incident just gave him a reason to look closer. I rubbed my temples. My family thinks I had something to do with it. Caleb's getting paranoid, throwing around accusations. Did you tell them the truth? That you didn't know beforehand? I did, but he doesn't believe me. He's convinced I used my connections to tank him out of spite. Claire squeezed my hand. Ethan, you need to understand something about people like your brother. They spend their whole lives sidestepping responsibility. When the world finally catches up, they need someone to blame. It can't be their fault. It's bad luck, bad timing, or someone sabotaging them. He needs you to be the villain, because otherwise he has to admit he's been drifting on charm and lies. I gave her a look. You sound like you've seen this before. I have, she said simply. My dad's had to fire a lot of Calebs. The ones who interview well, talk a big game, charm their way into jobs they can't handle. They all react the same. Shocked that results actually matter, convinced someone's out to get them. The few who wake up and grow, they make it. The rest just keep repeating the cycle. We sat there quietly for a while, her hand resting in mine, the glow from the city outside reflecting off the window. After everything, the silence felt peaceful. What would you do? I asked finally. If it were your sibling? Exactly what you're doing, she said. Set boundaries and hold them. You're not responsible for saving him, Ethan. You're not responsible for fixing what he breaks. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do, the only loving thing, is let them face their own consequences. Helping him now would just keep him from growing up. My phone buzzed on the table. A new message from my mother. Asterisk Ethan, your father and I are very disappointed. Caleb needed his family, and you turned your back on him. We raised you better than this. Asterisk I handed Claire the phone. She read it, then shook her head slowly. They raised you to be independent, she said. And they raised him to be dependent. Now they're mad that you're not playing your assigned role anymore. She gave the phone back. Are you going to answer? I thought about all the years I'd spent explaining myself, trying to justify my choices to people who refused to listen. About how I'd been the dependable one, not the favorite one, and how, in our family, that meant invisible. No, I said, setting the phone face down. Not this time. For the first time in days, I felt something close to peace settle in. The weekend came, and with it, a family dinner I'd completely forgotten about. Dad's 65th birthday. I almost canceled, thought about claiming a cold or a work emergency, but Claire talked me out of it. You can't dodge them forever, she said. And honestly, you need to see where you stand now, without hiding behind texts or calls. As usual, she was right. So that Saturday evening, I drove out to my parents' place in the suburbs, stomach tight, with a familiar mix of tension and guilt. Caleb's car was already in the driveway. Of course it was. He'd moved back home, right into his old bedroom after quitting his job. He didn't talk to me for 3 months. Total silence. From what my parents said, he was working at a car dealership while figuring things out. Mom still tried the guilt trip now and then. Asterisk, he's your brother, Ethan. Family forgives. Asterisk, but even she sounded less convinced than before. What surprised me most was Dad. One night he called and said quietly, I talked to Caleb about the resume thing. He told me over lunch that he'd been exaggerating his resume for years, that Mom and Dad had made it too easy for him, and now they finally saw it. He looked me in the eye and said, I'm sorry, Ethan, for making you feel like you came second. It wasn't everything I needed, but it was something. In February, Richard officially announced my promotion at Monroe Systems. The news hit a few industry publications, and 3 days later Caleb called. Congrats, man. VP, that's huge. Thanks, I said. I'm selling cars now, he added. It's not what I pictured, but it's honest work. I'm actually good at it. Employee of the month, 2 months straight. He hesitated, then said, I've been seeing a therapist. She's helping me figure out my patterns, accountability, that kind of thing. That's really good, Caleb. About your girlfriend's dad, he said, his voice careful. Did he really kill my job? I paused. He raised concerns when the VC group asked for input. They double-checked and made their own call. But yeah, it started because of dinner. A long silence. That's fair, he said finally. It sucks, but it's fair. I would have been found out anyway. Probably. Tell him I get it. We hung up soon after. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was real. More honesty than we'd managed in years. In April, Claire and I got engaged. Richard gave me a corner office with harbor views and said, "You've earned this. Not because you're marrying my daughter, but because you're damn good at what you do." That night, Claire asked, "Any regrets?" I thought about the ruined suit, the refused loan, and watching my brother face reality for the first time. "No," I said. "Everyone ended up where they needed to be." "Even Caleb?" she asked. "Especially Caleb. Losing that job might have been the best thing that ever happened to him." She smiled and raised her glass. "To natural consequences?" "To natural consequences," I said, clinking mine against hers. My parents came to our engagement party, and Caleb sent a card that read, "Congrats. You two deserve each other, in the best way. Proud of you." At our wedding that fall, he showed up in a well-fitted suit he'd bought with his own commissions. He shook Richard's hand without awkwardness, and during the reception, he found me at the bar. "Nice wedding," he said. "Thanks for coming," I replied. "I'm applying to business school," he said, smiling nervously. "Part-time MBA. Selling cars made me realize I'm actually good at customer psychology when I'm not faking it." "That's fantastic," I said. He took a breath. "I was angry at you for a while. About the job, the money. But my therapist helped me see you were the only one treating me like an adult." He lifted his glass. "So thanks for being the one who said no." I laughed. "You're welcome. You were right. You know," he continued. "I was coasting. The wine thing? I was jealous, drunk and petty. You had it figured out, and I couldn't handle it." "I didn't have everything figured out," I said. "You had enough." He finished his drink. "Congratulations, man. You and Claire are good together." Then he walked off before I could reply. Claire came over and asked, "What was that about?" I smiled. "Progress. Actual, real progress." As we danced, I saw Richard laughing with my father, my mother chatting warmly with Claire's mom, and Caleb talking easily with my cousins. The wine-stained suit was long gone. The 15 grand stayed invested. The lost job offer had turned into something better for all of us. I pulled Claire closer and whispered, "Being overlooked forced me to build something real. If they'd babied me like they did Caleb, I might never have developed discipline or found you." She grinned. "So I should thank him?" "I'm saying the universe has its own sense of balance," I said. "And the best revenge is living well and letting natural consequences do the rest." She kissed me as the song ended, and for the first time, everything felt perfectly aligned. I never learned exactly what Richard told that VC group. Some details were better left between karma and coincidence. All I knew was that I'd walked away from that dinner without a word, without revenge, and somehow justice had found its way all on its own. Bye.